Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome. We have another exciting, spectacular comic book launch, courtesy of our friends over at Thorny Comics. It is a big day, everybody. Welcome. My name is Ming Chen, and today, I don't think I have to introduce this man's name, but the name Scott Snyder is the mark of quality in comics, in storytelling, in epics, in all the things we know and love. And today, Scott Snyder's presenting an anthology called The Cloakroom. I'm here with Jerry Corridum, who you may know as now a familiar face around these parts. His amazing publishing company, Thorny Comics. You may know Cicada Samurai and some of the other titles we've heartily endorsed here at the Shared Universe, and that I heartily endorse personally. But Jerry, welcome back.
Thank
How
you,
are
buddy.
you? I know that when you're here, things are going well because that means you have another product launch. And as of today, as of moments from now, an amazing Kickstarter kicks off called The Cloakroom, an anthology. Uh, what can you tell us about this? And I have many questions after I know this is there was a Eisner winning anthology called Tales from the Cloakroom.
I got to correct. That was actually a mistake I made.
Okay.
We have not won an Eisner yet.
Oh,
A story from the first volume of the sort of the inspiration behind the series was nominated for Best Short Story 2 years ago. It's called The Beekeeper's Due by Jimmy Stamp,
okay.
and it did not win. But for some reason, I had it in my head that it did, and I put that in the email to you, and that's entirely my fault. And I apologize. So we haven't won yet. It should have won. But
I mean, maybe there's a Oscar envelope La La Land mix up. We don't know, but were you guys robbed? I can't say. I was not part of the committee.
I mean, who is to say? You know what I mean? Who's to say?
Yeah.
But I can tell you about the thing. So I and Veronica Howell, who's in the group here, we're editing the project together. We, along with all the other creators on the chat here, are all in Scott Snyder's Writing 101 and 102 class, which he does through his Substack, his newsletter, Our Best Jacket, which is kind of an offshoot of his own little, in-house publisher. So, every month he does a live show where we all get together and he uses students' work and kind of talks about writing, how to write a horror story, how to write a mystery. He does interviews with other creators like Donnie Cates, Josh Williamson, James Tynan, and they've all been on the show. And so they just talk about the craft and we all kind of glean what we can from it. A lot of us get to meet with Scott. So a lot of the stories that are in this anthology have been pitched to Scott, that were developed with Scott in one-on-one meetings with some of the creators here. And so 2 years ago, a group of students in the class put together Tales from the Cloakroom. They did one volume. A following year, a different group of students put together a second volume. And rather than trying to do a third volume where we'd have to get like 20 stories together all at the same time, Veronica and I decided to try and turn it into a quarterly issue-based, ongoing anthology series. So every 3 months, there'll be a new issue of The Cloakroom. Scott Snyder presents The Cloakroom. And for as long as Scott is happy to let us put his name on it, and as long as there are students pitching us ideas, we will keep putting out issues, until we learn to hate comic books. So,
which will never happen. Who would ever hate comic books?
Will never happen.
Yeah. So Scott Snyder's this is a pretty genius idea. It's kind of like an incubator, an Avengers, if you will, gathering of or young Avengers, if you will, of creators. And
it would be like the Young Avengers if they allowed 40-plus-year-old people to join the team. But sure, yeah, that's
that's brilliant. Because he could just sit there and just crank out comics himself. He's like, no, I want to encourage other up and coming writers, creators, artists. And
I think he's always been a teacher. So my James Tynan met him by being in a writing workshop with him 15 years ago. That's how they got to know each other to begin with. So he's always been a teacher. He loves doing it. And he's like, a lot of people in comics are really like nice people and great people and supportive and helpful and will answer questions. But I have never met anybody who puts this much time and effort into encouraging other people to kind of get together, find your tribe of people, and kind of lift each other up all in one. He's a very big believer in that, and that's kind of why we're all here. It's like this community of people who want to support each other and our love for this genre all together. And it's kind of a thing that he created,
That's awesome. And who better to learn from than Scott Snyder? I mean, let's be honest here. So this Kickstarter is for issue number 1, and it features 7 stories, over 50 pages, which is really amazing. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 7 creators here. And and he said this is going to be quarterly, every 3 months.
Yeah, we've actually got, Veronica, how many stories do we have? We have the second issue is already kind of filled out.
It's kind of posted around here somewhere. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the second issue. Originally, Jerry and I were like, let's keep it small. Like it'll be, like a staple bound. It'll just be like a floppy, and it'll have maybe 3 stories. And then, as you can imagine with Scott's class, there's just a lot of really, really good stories. And so we got the pitches and we were like, oh my God, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And we could keep going doing 10 every 4 months, like it's hard to pick, but 1 less like next month. Next issue.
By our first deadline, we had set a deadline for the first issue. And by that deadline, we had gotten 71 submissions from 51 creators in the class. Some people submitted 2 or 3 or 4, And
what I love about this is
watching this, we're still open for submission. So anybody wants,
just for record for the future, if anybody did want to submit, how would they do that? Would they have to join the Substack first and then submit?
Yeah, so it's exclusively for creators who are in the Substack. Whatever tier you're in, you can reach out to us through. I can pull the email address. I think it's cloakroomsubmissions@gmail.com.
Okay,
at thornycomics.com. Yeah,
cloakroomsubmissions@thornycomics.com. For sure.
Cloakroomsubmissions@thornycomics.com. Yes,
yeah,
that's it.
For sure. And so what I love about this anthology, we're spanning all kinds of genres, correct? Sci-fi, fantasy, dark fairy tale, comedic horror, interdimensional anthropomorphic dinosaurs, which is a wide variety. So there's something for everybody in this anthology.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of the thing. Like Scott recently, when he stopped doing Batman and left DC for a bit, the way he's talked about it is he kind of spent these last couple of years experimenting in a bunch of genres that he wasn't known for. He's known for horror. He's known for obviously American Vampire, and then all the Batmans, superheroes. He's known for those things first or earlier in his career. And more recently, he's been doing a lot of stuff that's like, cyberpunk and more like old school kind of genre, Night of the Ghoul. It's like an old fashioned, Hollywood monster kind of story and stuff. And so he just was kind of trying everything. And so those are the stories that are in the class. Like people in the class are working with him, and kind of, he had a night where he just talked about mystery writing in one of our stories. The writer that night just went home and took one thing he said, like, here's a simple way to set up a mystery.
Right.
And he just went home and did that and wrote a story over the next few weeks. So, it's basically any genre, we have a zombie story. We have literally anthropomorphic dinosaurs traveling through multiple dimensions.
I mean, sold.
Yeah, we have like a biker gang with like inner politics and murder and stuff. Like we've got all kinds of, it's all over the map, and it's kind of great because but they're all really good stories.
That's amazing. So with that in mind, with all these various genres, were there any parameters placed on the writers? I imagine length was probably one of them because you only have 50 pages to fit 7 stories. Were there any other parameters that you guys had set on the writers, the creators?
Oh, sorry, Veronica. I thought no. I mean, we were, so the previous versions, like they had given a prompt. They wanted all the stories to kind of revolve around a coat, kind of like play off of Scott's best jacket, press, that whole thing. So we kept it as the Cloakroom. That's sort of an homage to where the anthology series came from. But there is no guiding principle apart from, you took some inspiration or learned something from the class that you applied to your story.
Right.
And you're willing to like work hard at it and, kind of complete the story. Length is definitely, we wanted everything to be between 2 and 10 pages. That was kind of our goal.
That's amazing. And I noticed, as far as artwork goes, also very, very open. Some are color. I think there are a couple. There's some black and white. There's some full color. You left it up to the creators, I imagine.
Yeah, we paired people up with artists. So some people came to us with a story that was complete or almost complete. Some people started with just a pitch, a one-page document with like a log line and a general idea of what they wanted to do. No artist in mind, no artist connected. So we're, and in fact, all that is represented here. And then like in one case, Chris, who's here, is the writer and the artist for his own story. And, so he already had a good amount of his story drawn, and we talked about kind of a tweak, I think, right, Chris? We talked about a tweak to the ending of your story,
right?
But it was all you. It's all he's the lone creator on the project.
Amazing. With that, I'd love to talk to all the creators here. Chris, we will start with you. You in the Hollywood Squares bottom right. You have a story called Computer Love. You're both the writer and the artist. Is that correct? Can you tell us about your background and please tell us about your story as well?
Yeah, background as far as I fell in love with comics at a young age, like I'm sure a lot of us have. Reading like some of the big mainstays of the genre, and fall in love with like the TMNT and the Batman and the Spider-Man. So I came into it from the superhero angle. I think a lot of guys are. And then as you get older, you keep reading these books, you kind of branch out, you start reading indie stuff, you start reading these just really cool titles. And, I got the bug to want to make one several years ago. And I wasn't drawing as often as I am now. And I just thought, I want to make it happen. So I started practicing, all sorts of anatomy, composition, all the stuff that goes into illustrating a book, which, as any artist out there knows, it's a lot of work to illustrate pages, to ink them, to color them, to arrange your panels, and then you add writing on top of that, which is something that I've been really wanting to strengthen. Taking the class with Scott and getting some absolute gems that he gives out. It really helped tie it together for me. And so Computer Love is basically a story about a guy with a neural implant embedded in his brain, and he is having an affair with this AI woman in his mind. And the story is about him trying that affair before he destroys his marriage. And so it's kind of Elon Musk doing his Neuralink kind of got me thinking, how's that going to destroy the world? Here's one way.
Yeah, so and I'm going to. I have a couple pages here. Any kids watching, not safe for work, but here's.
Yeah, that's about as not safe.
There's one of the pages, and his wife, and we have another one right here, and it's amazing. Real quick, what was the inspiration for this? Was there anything that sparked this story?
Yeah, it literally was learning about the Neuralink from Elon Musk and kind of brainstorming on that. And I had another idea somewhere in my files. Like if I come across something that I think is interesting, I kind of look through my notes and see, does it pair well with anything else I have in here? And at some point I had thought that a robot sex bot getting jealous of some wife would be interesting. And those two ideas kind of collided together, and that's how it kind of came about.
I love it. Well done. Congratulations. Rob, we're going to go to you. We'll just go in reverse order here. Rob, you have a story called Surprise of the Fittest. Surprise of the Fittest. Can you tell us about your background with comics, and then tell us about your story?
Well, when I was a kid, I didn't have much in the way of proper comic books. I grew up on Peanuts, High and Lois, Wizard of Id, that kind of stuff. But as I got older, approached high school, started watching a lot of videos on comic books. I started ordering lots of comic books from the 90s off of eBay. So I'm probably the only millennial that was blown away by the image boom. And it's just something that I've been learning and nurturing since high school and college.
That's amazing. And listen, Iron Lotus is a real comic. I don't care what anyone says. Lois is Beetle Bailey's cousin. Like that's Like they cross universes. I disagree with that. Can you tell us about Survival of the Fittest?
The story is basically about a timeline where the dinosaurs never died off. You know, the meteor never hit. They became the dominant species. And by the time of 2023, humanity is basically their pests. The dinosaurs have a metropolis. There's one government scientist that discovers that his world, his whole timeline, is basically an anomaly. Like, for every one world he finds where the dinosaurs survived, there are 10 others where they died off and the humans thrived. And so, since he's got all these connections and ambitions, how does he deal with that?
Amazing.
Rob is somebody who uniquely, like, I think, is his writing is so connected to like his tabletop gaming stories, and that's something that I find really interesting. Is it's very like he's big into tabletop gaming, and then comes up with all these wild stories from it, and all these different possibilities, and that's, I think, where, Rob, you get some of your
inspiration.
Well, I'm also a big fan of series like Sliders, Exiles,
Dinosaurs.
Yes, dinosaurs as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw up a couple. I got a couple pages here. Those are the dinosaurs and the universe in question here. Nice. which is amazing. So dinosaurs who wear suits. I love it. I love it. Sold, my friend. Sold. Thank you, Rob.
Well, if they have a society, why wouldn't they wear clothes?
Yeah, exactly. Nick, we're going to go over to you. How are you, my friend? Can you tell us about your background in comic books, and please tell us about WIDOWMAKER?
Yeah, so obviously liked them as a kid, like everybody else here. X-Men, and then comic strips also specifically for me. Then over time, kind of got away from it. Came back around Red Hood and the Outlaws, the new 52 variety, so Starfire, Arsenal. They brought me back in, and I did like the Rebirth run as well. But that was pivotal for me as a reader. Primarily because, Red Hood, Jason Todd, preferably as Red Hood, not so much as Robin. He's defying Batman in a way that I enjoy, not just being a petulant child the whole time. And that kind of opened me up to the indie scene. We're talking Image, obviously Dark Horse, Boom, all that and more, and kind of just helped for me expand my readership and see what else was out there and just different ways that comics could operate outside of superheroes. And as for WIDOWMAKER, so my artist on it is Nayara Rodriguez, who's also a member of the class. I actually met her through the class, and you can see a little bit of her artwork behind me right now. And I know,
and I'm going to throw up a page here as well, which
cool. We got the first page right there. Nai's an outstanding artist, and she did the cover and some interior work for the second volume of Tales of the CloakRoom. And I've seen some of her work, but then also on top of working with Veronica and Jerry too, they've helped bring her art to another level. And I mean, again, like you're seeing that second page there, you're seeing Camille Tyler, who is the main character of this. And this story is very character driven, and when as a reader, something I very much enjoy. You get that in superhero comics to some extent, but there's a lot of plot, events, and everything like that. But in quite a bit on the indie scene, whether you look at Chip Zdarsky when he's doing indie work, or James Tynion and his indie work, a lot of them are character driven. A lot of my favorite writers are. And then Donnie Cates, who did join Scott's class a little while back for the lesson on characterization. He was somebody that his one appearance in Scott's lesson really made a big impact on me, and had a huge influence on what I did with Camille throughout this issue. And I mean, the log line for this too, for those who are wondering, a biker queen ascends to Empress as she finally removes the organization's long festering virus, her husband.
I love it. Again, sold.
Thank
you, Nick. Lance, we'll go over to you. You have a story called Suicide by Zombie. Can you tell us about your background in comics, and then please tell us about Suicide by Zombie?
So my background, grew up with like Claremont and Lee on X-Men and stuff. And then as I got older, I thought it was too cool for comics. Spoilers, I wasn't cool. I just missed out on some really good comics. I got back into them and always kind of wanted to write them and do the stuff. Just never time and place. And then here a few years ago, 2020, I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to do this. And I wrote a horror a horror book, a sci-fi book, and a fantasy book, and I had cons booked all year of 2020, and then we know what happened to the cons in 2020. So had a little setback, but through Scott's class, through like Jerry and Veronica, through all these amazing people, it's really kind of reinvigorated my passion and my joy for doing it all. So. And
that's amazing. So, yeah, please tell us about Suicide by Zombie.
So, I'm not a big horror person. Like, I give me a Pauly Shore movie over a scary movie any day. But I think horror is a interesting genre that you can put anything over it. Tell any kind of story. And so, I think a lot of people recently been dealing with loneliness and things like that. And I was like, what would be lonelier than if you're in a world where you don't know if there's other humans? Everybody's a zombie. How would you handle that? And my main character, Atticus Bridger, decides he wants to end it. He's over it, and he's gonna, instead of doing it himself, he's gonna have a zombie bite him and turn him, because he figures that's like the most surefire way. He doesn't know how to tie knots necessarily for a noose. He doesn't have a gun. Like, he's gonna get a zombie to bite him. But they don't.
Join a big community too.
Yeah,
Lots of them.
Yeah.
You're part of something.
He's like, they even have family, and I don't. They have each other. But he goes and he tries everything, and they just won't bite him. And to the point where they end up saving him in other ways. And so it's kind of, what do you do? Or it's about the unlikeliest places you'll find companionship and partnership, and find your group.
Yeah, for sure. So I got pages here. So there's a.
Please eat me.
Yes.
Please.
So my artist on here, Daniel Cable, he's a Brazilian artist, and we had a story from CloakRoom Volume 2 called Hearts on My Sleeve that was a whole lot of fun. It was a romance story, which again, not really my wheelhouse, but it was fun and challenging. And then we have a creator-owned series too that we also do. So he's awesome. I've worked with him for years, and we're really excited to bring this story to everybody.
Amazing. Thank you. Evan, we're going to go to you. Evan Von Doom, the man with the name. You have a story called Routine. Could you please tell us about your background or love, how you fell in love with comics? And please tell us about Routine as well, Mr. Von Doom.
Of course. Obviously, I love comics. It's my legal name. No, but I started reading comics at a very young age. One Christmas, my dad came with stockings and said, reach in. And I grabbed 2 copies of comics. One was Marvel Adventures Fantastic Four, and one was Marvel Adventures Spider-Man. And that set me off on my journey. I read comics pretty much my entire life, and I always loved them. And the big part of what I love about comics and stories in general is really empathizing with the story. You get to go into a new world, sometimes familiar, sometimes outlandishly weird, but it's always a human story or something we could connect with. And so similarly with Routine, that's something I wanted to do. Routine started out as a experiment. I love horror. I'm also very easily scared, both in real life and in movies. And so when I'm walking home late at night, especially I live in the city, so sometimes you always get that feeling of like there's someone maybe behind you. Maybe that person who just like walked by is going to come right back and everything. It's a nagging feeling I always felt. And so it started there, and it slowly evolved from that into being a lesson or a moment for myself to try to empathize with a different perspective. As a man, it's, in society, I have a different type of perspective on things. And so even though I feel this fear, that fear is entirely different and more real for, women and NBs. So I just wanted to try to empathize with that setting. And so that's where Routine was kind of born.
I love it. And I got some artwork here, which really cool artwork.
Yeah, our artist is Benji. They're fantastic. This is also their first comic. So I was very excited to bring them along with this journey with me. They really got the atmosphere right. Rue is the character name. But when I was writing this, Rue didn't have a name or a personality or a face. And Benji really brought that out in her. So this comic really just could not happen without them.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Sean, how are you? You have a story called God of Science. And Could you tell us about your background in comics, and please tell us all about Guide of Science?
So, like everyone here, I got into comics as a kid through my dad. He had an extensive collection, but of course only got us touch a couple issues that were old and faded and whatnot. Started reading comics through that. Started watching all the cartoons that came out in the 90s. And as soon as I had my own teenage job as an after-school work, I had my own money, I was buying my own comics, Spider-Man, X-Men, all the superheroes. Kept writing on that through high school, kept writing that through college, because I always wanted to be a writer. But, you know, I graduated college, I got a job, never got around to it. But a couple of years ago, some friends and I got together and we finally started making our own comics, and it was everything I hoped it would be. So when the opportunity came up to take an actual class and actually learn how to do it, I jumped on board Scott's class and have learned so much, basically the fundamentals that I, never knew, but I still tried it anyway. So my story is God of Science. The first human explorer to set foot in the afterlife gets into an argument with the nearest god. It is a comedic sci-fi story, kind of pitting science versus religion, and some of my own thoughts on that. The idea came, I remember it exactly. If you remember the classic Mark Millar story, Superman Red Sun, what if Superman grew up in Stalinist Russia? There's a line in that story. It doesn't have anything to do with the story, about someone, a human explorer setting foot in the afterlife. And something about that line just always stuck in the back of my brain, because well written, kind of create like an interesting idea, and it just kind of sat rent free in my brain forever, until I started taking this class and learned ways to explore. One thing Scott has taught us and emphasized is that when writing a story, make it about something that's important to you, something meaningful to you, a theme. And so that combined with that kernel of an idea, I came up with this story about kind of pitting, like I said, pitting science versus religion, and coming face to face and just kind of just facing down your own beliefs.
Amazing. I'm going to throw up some of the pages here from God of Science.
The artwork is by an artist, Luke Beatrice. He's also starting out in sketches and making his living as an artist. And I've worked with him for a little bit now on some of my other projects. And I knew when I needed an artist to do good, solid work, I would turn to him. And he has turned in some great pages I'm very happy with, very pleased with. He designed the characters based on some of my ideas, and very happy with how it's turned out.
Amazing. And so it was literally one line in Superman Red Sun that
it always stuck with me.
He was like, I'm going to expand on this. Like, I can't get this out of my head.
Yeah,
until you did.
I love the entire comic. It's a great comic.
Yeah,
that one line just separated itself and buried into my head there.
I think that's what Jerry and I want to do more than anything, is like the idea that you might have a story idea in the back of your head. You're not doing anything with it. It's a one day maybe I'll write this, but then to have Sean be like, this was something that I'd always wanted to do. It's nagging. I think all of us probably have that, like our baby that we're one day gonna make and pour our heart into, and never actually put it on paper. But Sean talking about how it wasn't until taking this class he learned how little he actually knew, and then was happy to take as many lessons as possible to just put this thing, put it into words. And I understand that completely, that idea of one day I'm going to write it, but not today, and probably not tomorrow, probably not the next day. But then Scott being the impetus for that. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's amazing. Veronica, how long did it take to compile this anthology? And what were there any challenges, or what was the biggest challenge?
Jerry, I think the biggest challenge is probably finding the right artists. And originally we knew that the other volumes had writers come on board with a full team already, and their story kind of ready made. We were like, no, if you can't afford an artist, or if you can't you don't have contacts or something like that, no big deal. We'll figure it out. We'll find one that's perfect for you together. And then the amount of people that were I need an artist, and then Jerry and I were kind of well, I know a couple. And so it took longer than we thought. But I think now we have like a pretty good Rolodex. I actually wish I had a Rolodex, but yeah, it's gotten
finding
bigger.
the artist was definitely hard. And I would say the other thing is like Veronica and I are both in the class because we're both also writers. And for this project, we wanted to flex our editorial muscle, which is like, it's different. You have to, we're trying to help each one of these creators make the best possible version of their story without ever thinking to ourselves like, well, here's how I would write it, which is, it's kind of hard to do that. Like when you're also a writer, you think like, what would I do with that idea? And that's not really the job, right? Like the editorial job is, how do I help you make your best version of your story, like the thing that you have in your mind? And so the combination of doing that plus just learning how much work editors do, there's like, you don't really think about it. Like there are people who are like legendary editors who actually, Will Dennis did an episode in one class with Scott and talked about a lot of this, but like what the job is and how it works and how they are kind of the gatekeepers at these publishers. But the amount of work that they do that is creative without being like overbearing or oversteering the ship, you know what I mean? It's very hard. And it's been like an incredibly rewarding experience, like watching all these stories come together where we're not the writer, where it's kind of just bouncing ideas off of each other and asking questions about characters and, like asking the writer to kind of think deeper into the thing that they're creating and kind of think about other ways to look at their own creation. Sometimes it amounts to nothing. Sometimes you land right back where you started. And sometimes it's like, well, what is the villain in this story thinking? And then, there's like, you tweak it a little bit and it kind of, maybe it feels better to everybody. And it's kind of like, it's been incredibly rewarding, but it is also incredibly time consuming considering that neither of us can claim credit to having written or personally created any of these stories. The amount of work that we've done on 7 stories that we didn't write is just kind of like, it was eye opening, the whole thing. And then trying to do it on an ongoing basis. We're already doing, like, we're launching this tonight. We're still wrapping up a couple of these stories. And then we have 6 more stories. We had a meeting today about 2 stories that are in issue 3, So it's just like constantly looking ahead. We're trying to think, 4 to 6 months ahead of schedule, ahead of where we are right now, so that we can kind of keep this thing rolling and keep on telling people to send us more submissions. Like, I hope that everybody who is in this issue comes back and it ends up in issue 5, 6, or 7, down the road once we cycle through the other stories we already have. That's my genuine hope, is that we can keep this thing going. But it's a crazy amount of work. And I have, like most of us on this thing, I have a full-time job. I have 3
not
kids.
to mention
you what? I missed that.
Well, I was
Say
just
that
gonna say,
again?
not to mention, you guys have been spearheading the social media campaign as well. I was just gonna say, not to mention that you guys have also been spearheading the social media campaign, which I'm sure is a lot of work as well. Something that I definitely appreciate. I know the rest of the guys appreciate it as well.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, it's it's just it is like really a lot of work, and it's kind of eye opening because again, you don't really think of the editor. You always think of the writer, the artist, the people who created the story. But it's those people who are kind of moving those creative people along on their deadlines and kind of being a sounding board that can kind of help make their story better and I hope that we're doing a good job in doing a good not doing a disservice to any of these stories in the process.
Yeah, if I could toot your horn for a little bit, you guys have been fantastic editors. Benji and I talk about you guys all the time. Sometimes we're like, I wish I like the story as it is, but then we read the notes and we do it over. We're like, all right, they were right, So we really definitely appreciate everything you put. Maybe we don't say it enough, but I'll say it 1,000 times. The story definitely just could not happen without the 2 of you. So we really appreciate you.
Very supportive.
Appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, actually, one little story that I wanted to share too. Like, so I agree with everything Kristen and Evan said as well. But something else that kind of funny came up early in the process with my story, where we have this biker club and Nayara created this logo that is going to be kind of an important part of the story. It's prominently featured, not really so much part of the narration or the dialogue. But Jerry actually had the idea of like, oh, let's go and use this and create a separate as part of a perk. And we were working on making stickers. But at the time, Jerry, you had said you wanted to do a patch possibly as a perk. I never heard anything from you. I never followed up, but I was like, I don't know how you're going to fit that in. I don't know how anybody would know how to get a patch made like that. I was like, this is a whole nother level of work. You're going to be busy as heck already.
Yeah,
I think Ming knows.
Stickers.
The stickers are great. No, those are awesome. I actually love that. Yeah. So we had these stickers made up. Like Veronica had these stickers made up of the biker gang, logo and the cloakroom. And but
I did research into patches, could not find anywhere that makes patches. So if anybody watching or listening knows where you can get patches made,
I know a few people.
I know, yeah, Ming.
Ming.
Where did I get the idea, Ming? Where did I get the idea?
Look at that.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah. So speaking of rewards, is the Kickstarter live? Did you hit the button yet?
I'm logging back in right now to hit the button. I'm hitting the button right now.
Okay, and you can get to it. The URL is streaming by on the bottom here, or if you simply just go to Kickstarter and just search Scott Snyder, it's the first thing that pops up. Scott Snyder presents a Cloakroom. Can you tell us about the tiers, the rewards? The range of things that anybody who supports a Kickstarter can get.
Yeah, so we've got. Hang on, let me just hit go, and then I'll answer that question. I'll make sure I hit go the right way.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I'm double checking. I have a second Kickstarter going right. This is my second one going simultaneously. I have one for my own project, and I messed up when I hit go on the other one. So I accidentally ran just like a 2.5 week long Kickstarter campaign, and I'm like really nervous. I'm not going to make the number. So I got to just let me double check and then check all the boxes, ready to go. Launch project. It actually says drum roll on the screen.
Okay.
And congratulations, your project is live.
All right.
There it is.
Anybody watching right now can go and support the Cloakroom. But yeah, what are the different tiers? Where do we start? And what are the things that people can get?
So the tiers. So it is just to fully describe it. It's between 45 and 50. I can never remember now if it's 47 or 49 pages of story. In a 64-page book. So it's too big to staple bind. We're going to do a perfect bound book. It's going to be like a nice spine to it. And you can get it. You can get the A cover, which is by Siraji. You can get the B cover, which is by. There it is. There's our A cover. You can get that with the logo and a virgin dress version of it without the logo. You can get the B cover, which is this one's by Matt Salisbury. Matt had done a cover for one of the previous volumes of the Tales of the Cloakroom, and he's actually doing a story. He's an artist who did a story in the previous version. He's doing one of the meetings we had today was with Matt to talk about a story that he's doing for issue 3 of the Cloakroom. So those are all available individually. That's 4 different options. And then you can basically mix and match. There are a lot of people on Kickstarter who like to collect all the covers. You can do that. There's a tier for that. It's called Cover Me. You get all 4 of the covers of our book. And then there are a lot of tiers where you can pick up copies of Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the Tales from the Cloakroom, which is the larger 2 anthology books that kind of started this. Each of those has 18 stories in it. And those are bigger. Those are trade paperback size each. So they're all like 140 something ish pages. So you can pick those up. You can get all these things digitally if you don't want more things on your bookshelf. If you, like Rob Malone there, have bookshelves that look like they're going to be crushed under the weight of all the stories he's reading. Or you can have
big important law books.
Yeah, or you can get multiple copies of all of them. We also have 2 retailer tiers. So there's one available with steep discounts. We, in all my campaigns that I've done so far, I always hear from retailers that they can't really afford to buy a bunch of these Kickstarter priced books. But this, like I said, is a 50-page story. I think it's very marketable in stores. Scott has a very big local comic shopper following. So I think that these would do actually pretty well and they have great covers and it's a lot of great stories. I think these would do really well in stores. But you can get 10 of them or 20 of them in 2 different retailer tiers. Both of them are at a 55% discount. So it's a very steep discount.
That's
so
great.
Like local comic shops will pick it up. Yeah. I'm really trying to get Mike Zapsik on board, Ming. Just trying to get him to
I
buy
was
a
about
copy.
to say, Mike Zapsik, are you watching or listening? I mean, not only will you be supporting a friend, a man who launched your career several years ago, but you'll be surprised.
Totally.
You'll be supporting a lot of great creators who, that deserve to be supported. And who knows, you may need a favor or two from them later on, Mike Zapsik. So, yes, yes, please get on that. That's really amazing, though. I really love that. I think every retailer I know, like, dude, just pick it up. You won't regret it, for
Yeah,
sure.
we
I
really
have a
wanted
lot
to like. Go ahead.
I have so much, like, I grew up in a comic book store basically, and I've been going through this whole thing as like, what can we do to get, like to help local shops, or like to not, like to get our books in there, but to do it in a way that gets people to the store. And it's not easy, like with the, direct market, and a lot of time Kickstarter prices are more than they would pay for something out of Diamond. And so, the retailer part is really important to me. So I'm hoping that people who are retailers, like, we could get in touch with them after the campaign through BackerKit or something, and just any support we could give to retailers, because this book is dedicated to a retailer by me. Like, my dedication is to my hometown store. So
Yeah, not for another. There's nothing like walking into a store and seeing it on the rack or the shelf or whatever. There's really nothing like it, for sure. So Veronica and Jerry, if I were to ask you, what was your overall goal with this anthology? I know they're going to be launched quarterly, hopefully forever, for the long term. But do you guys have an overall goal for this?
I mean, I think I just want to keep it going. I want to keep, I'd like to like look in the like 5 years from now, look back on these things and say, like, okay, a few people who printed a story in this anthology that we're working on, came back and we kept working together on bigger stories. So, if for example, I know Widowmaker, is kind of an open-ended story that could be a series. It could be, I know that Nick has a plan for a thought, an idea of like what he would do if it was a 6-issue or an ongoing series. I would love to work with him on that. I'd love to work with everybody on, the same thing for Lance with Suicide by Zombie. Every one of these stories, really, they're kind of like, a handful of them are more suited to like, here's a little one-off, and I'd love to work with everybody who writes a nice one-off and do another story in the future. But I think it'd be great to keep working with all the people I've met through this process, and 10 years from now, we are doing classes where we're passing what we learned from Scott on to the next generation of people coming up behind us. I think that would be really awesome if all of us figured out how to make a living at this thing that we love and got to kind of pay it forward.
That's really cool. And I guess my analogy is that, with these shorter stories, they're kind of like making shorts that may expand into a feature, or a full run of comics, which is really cool. What a way to start, though, for sure, with an anthology, the shorter anthology group with other stories. Really
I think
awesome.
as creators, you really flex a different muscle when you're writing something short, and to have it be, even if it's a one-off and it's 8 pages, like, that is something that it's not easy to do. It's not easy to sit down and write a story that's self-contained either. And I said something, Nick, I said, what did I say to you recently? I was like, one day your children, you'll show it to them. You'll say, I have this book published, and then can you remind me what I said?
Yeah, it was along those lines, because you were worried about all the notes that you were giving us on the art, and it was outstanding. It really enhanced, like, again, like some of the way you guys enhanced the inks and everything, it was outstanding. But on the note of like writing shorter stories, because I mean, other people have talked in here about how they've written longer form stuff. Writing something that's, my story is 8 pages, like, it really forces you to just like you utilize every single panel, every single caption or bubble. And then Nye's obviously a great artist, so she helps carry me big time. But it's just, you really have to think about making every single bit matter. And hearing some guys that have stuff that's maybe a little bit more plot driven versus where I went character driven, like, hats off to you, because as I was writing this, I was like, I have to go character driven run, and it worked for me. But like doing it strictly plot based just seems like, or primarily plot based, I should say, seems like a challenge that I just don't know if I could do that personally.
Yeah, I think my largest, like my main goal is to see more people like you guys, like that I just have Zoom calls with, and get excited, like talking about your story, and then texting you afterwards to say I'm sorry that I said so much about your story, and please feel free to ignore me, and just getting really psyched, talking about ideas, like throwing it back and forth, and just hearing other people's ideas is awesome. There's so many ideas, and again, going back to Sean, like if you've had something in the back of your head for years and you just never made it, make it. Just make it. And there you go. Sean's gonna have a published story now, and you're welcome to.
Thanks for making it happen.
That's amazing. Again, the Kickstarter is now live. If you go to Kickstarter.com and just search Scott Snyder or Scott Snyder CloakRoom or Scott Snyder Tales from the CloakRoom, you can see the campaign that is up. Jerry, how long does that run for?
It's going to run till March 13th.
Okay, so you got a good month, but hop on it now.
I did it correctly this time, so it's going to run for a full month.
Okay, this is confirmed. It's correctly
this is confirmed.
Yeah. Awesome.
29 days to go. 29 days.
Amazing. I want to throw it out to any of the creators out there. Is there anything you guys are working on now that you want to promote? I'll throw it out there if anybody wants. You've done the hard work, and you've got the story in this anthology. Anybody else got anything that they're working on right now?
Oh yeah. Thanks for this opportunity. Much like Jerry, I also, just pure timing, have another Kickstarter running right now. One of my own personal comics I wrote with my friends, Gamer Girl and Vixen, Volume 2, Tyrant Lizard Queen, is also on Kickstarter right now. You can search for it. We're just shy of hitting 50% on day 2. So nice. Fingers crossed, we're doing all right there. So yeah, if anyone wants to look for that too, that is out there and raising money, and we got our hopes up on that. It's a sequel to a story we wrote a couple years ago, and again, it's just, we're trying to make our own comics, self-publish, and get stuff out there. So if anyone wants to look for that, I'd very much appreciate some support there too. Amazing. You're a powerhouse. Anybody else?
Excuse me. Sorry. The sci-fi book that I did with Daniel, we're about to launch issue 1. It's going to be called The Embassy. We actually have 3 issues done. We just have been sitting on them. So look for that. And then I also have traditional books on Amazon under this name right here. My kids like to eat, so go buy some of those too.
Yes, Lance Stanford, everybody. Lance Stanford. Anybody else?
I have my own. So the Grizzly Crew is a book I'm writing, a new comic I'm writing with my son that he kind of co-created, in like a weird moment in our lives where he just walked into my office and started telling me this story, and I was like, hold on, this is a comic book, let me write it down.
Yeah.
And so that's live on Kickstarter right now. I hit launch last week. I'm a little over 50% of the way to my goal. I only have about 12 days left because I hit the button the wrong way. So if anyone's planning to go check that out and pledge, I would appreciate you doing it sooner rather than later.
Fantastic. And I thought I heard somebody else. Chris, you have something? Or anybody else?
Oh, no.
All right.
Go ahead.
All good. Jerry, did I forget anything? This sounds awesome. I love anthologies because I'm a man who loves variety. So,
if you want, there's one creator didn't make it onto the show tonight.
Yeah.
It's Shane Cruz. Would you mind just putting that up for a second? I just want to show. It's called The Shortcut.
Yes.
Just so we say we saw all the stories during the show.
Oh, here we go. Yep. Here's the art from The Shortcut. Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. This one came to us almost complete, so the art was very close to complete, and we talked a lot about the narration and the speech, the lettering. Basically, it was the only thing we really gave some notes on. But it's a story about a young girl I think it's pronounced nyctophobic. She's afraid of the dark, and she's got a crush on this guy, and he insists they need to take this shortcut through this horrible tunnel, and she decides to go along on the shortcut, and then this is kind of like you can kind of see how well that is going for her in those 2 quick pages there.
Right.
But that's what that story is about. It's great. It's again, it's Shane Cruz is the writer and Daniel Jimeno is the artist.
That's amazing. And yeah, by those 2 pages, not going so well. So
Not going so well for them.
how does it end? You're gonna have to support the Kickstarter again. So, thank you. Thank all of you guys for joining. Great luck again. The Kickstarter runs until March 13th. Literally just launched about 5 or 8 minutes ago. Go support it. It's amazing. And yeah, congratulations to you guys. You guys, this is a pretty awesome winning team, my friends. This team is better than the Kansas City Chiefs. So go out and support this book.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, for sure. But again, go to Kickstarter.com, search Scott Snyder, Tales from the Cloakroom. Yeah, out now. But yeah, congratulations, and to a long, fruitful comic book creator career for all of you guys. And be cool to look back and like, oh man, I remember I picked up one of their stories in that one anthology back in 2024. Now they're huge. So really, really awesome. And yeah, Thorny Comics, also Scott Snyder, two powerhouse legends, marks of quality, everybody, that everybody should be supporting. So thank you. Welcome back, Veronica. Thank you so much. And yeah, and yeah, pick up the book, everybody. And yeah, any last words, Jerry, Veronica?
No, I think we got it, man. Thank you. Thank Ming.
Yeah, it's a great team.
Ming, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Having us.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Awesome. Pick up the book, everybody. And thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll see you soon.